Hi, welcome back to Cook It. This is Catherine in Charleston House. And today we're going to be doing a roast chicken, roast potatoes, stuffing, and honey roast carrots and veg. So a good Sunday roast. And I'm just looking up here at my calculating how long my chicken has to go on for. So a chicken is about 45 minutes per kilo, and you really mostly get kilos when you buy a chicken, and then 20 minutes. So you add 20 minutes. So my chicken is 1 kilo, 400 grams. So I am going to put it on for 40 minutes, and then for the 400 grams, I going to put it on for like about 15, just under, because nearly a kilo and a half, and then another 20 minutes. So that's 45 an hour and 20 minutes. So about an hour and 20 minutes. Most chickens are between 1 and 2 kilos. You can put it on a weighing scales and weigh it if you want, and it's 20 minutes per pound, and then you add another 20 minutes at the end. So my chicken is going to be about an hour and 20 minutes in the cooker. But on the internet you can get cooking calculators. There's a really good one on bbc.co.uk. It's called Roast Calculator, and you just stick in what meat it is, what the weight is, and you're away. Okay, so the first thing to do with a chicken is to preheat the oven. So it's heated here for a good while at 180 degrees. And then your cooking time will depend on how cold the chicken is as well. So I often take the chicken out, leave it rest just at the counter, covered over for about 20 minutes or so before I cook it. So, because if you put it in freezing cold into the cooker, it takes a bit longer to cook. So if you can, leave it rest. But if not, just check for like close to the time for signs that it's done. So the sign it's done is that if you take your chicken, you take your string, there's always string on your chicken. So take the string off, and here at the leg is the best place to check whether the chicken is done or not. So if you, when it's close to cooked, and we'll do this later, and you cut into the skin and into the flesh there, and just see if it runs clear. If there's any bloody bits or whatever, stick it back in the oven for a little while. So the juice should run clear. So you wash your hands, wash the surfaces around you, take the string off the chicken, and if you stuff a chicken, we're not going to do that today, but if you stuff a chicken or you put a lemon or an onion or anything into the chicken, you may need to cook it for a bit longer. So just be aware of that as well. Okay, so we have our chicken in a roasting tin. I'm going to put it in a roasting dish so that I can stick some potatoes around it, and then get a little oil. Remember that when you touch chicken, because I'm going to rub oil into it now, always wash your hands straight afterwards, because once you touch anything else, it's got raw chicken on your hands and you don't want that. So you just pour a bit of oil all over and put your chicken in for the allotted time, and we'll be adding potatoes. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna go wash my hands now and then scrub down the phone. All right, so now sorry, I know that had come on or not. So we're going to do the potatoes next. So we're going to parboil the potatoes, and that means just cook them for a little while before they go in the cooker. So you only need to parboil them for from between 6 and 10 minutes. So get a pot of cold water and put about a teaspoon of salt into the water. Oops, my salt won't work. Okay, so a little bit of salt into the water, and peel your potatoes and put them in. Now, some of your potatoes might be much bigger. Some of mine are way bigger than the others. So I just try and get them in or around the same size. It doesn't really matter. If you're stuck on for time, so these are all around the same size otherwise, if you're stuck on time, you can make them small. You use about a potato for a child, maybe 2 potatoes for an adult. So you can figure out how many your kids will eat. Sometimes I make them and I keep them for the next day because they're handy as leftovers. You put them in a pot of cold water, boil them, and then have them on a kind of rolling boil where the water is boiling for between 6 to 10 minutes. And then you put them into the cooker. In the cooker, they need about 45 minutes to roast. So if you put them on about 45 minutes, towards the end of your cooking. So if you figure out, like my chicken went in 20. So my chicken went in 20 minutes ago. So after 20 minutes, I'm going to boil the potatoes, give them 10 minutes to boil, and then have them going into the cooker 45 minutes after. So I started cooking at 25 to 5. I'm putting the potatoes on to boil at 5. They'll be boiled at 10 past, and they'll go into the cooker about 1/4 past. That means they'll be finished at 6. The most difficult thing about a roast is just really the timing. So boil these up, give them about 6 to 10 minutes, and then pop them in the oven for 45. Okay? While your potatoes are boiling, you can hear them there in the background, you can get your parsnips ready. So I've peeled these, and a parsnip is very easy to peel, just like a potato, peeling the outside skin, and then you cut off the top with the stalk and the bottom. So just using your peeler or your knife. Peeler is easier maybe. And then you have your parsnips ready to go. These can go on top of your potatoes for a few minutes to just parboil for like a very short time. And then we put them into a roasting tin with the carrots. So I'm just going to go peel my carrots and top and tail them as well. So take the tops and the tops and the bottoms off them. Okay. Okay. So our potatoes have come to boiling. You can hear them bubble away there. And I might turn they're come to boiling. And I'm going to leave them in the boiling. Just going to turn down that a little bit, but leave them boil for about 6 to 10 minutes. You don't cook them right through. This is called parboiling. So you just boil them a little bit because most of the cooking is going to be in the oven. So the water comes to a boil. That took my water about 10 minutes, but it's a big pot of water. And I'm going to throw in the parsnips just for a few minutes, just to parboil them. And rather than have 2 pots, I'm going to stick them in with the potatoes. So some of my parsnips are really big, so I'm going to just slice them in half. But you can put them in whole if you like, if they're small. And just a little tip is that if you're stuck on time, just cut your veg small and it'll roast much quicker. So I'm going to just pop this in here. Oh, lovely. Just for a few minutes. So these don't need to cook very long at all. When you add the parsnips, the water cools down a little bit, so you just have to wait until it comes a little bit back to boil again. But they don't need this one is small, so I'm going to put it in full, and they don't need as long as the potatoes. Really quick. You can just put them in the oven if you want, if it's too much hassle to parboil them, but the pot is boiling there for the potatoes anyway. So I'm gonna just boil them for a few minutes, and I've got my carrots ready to go on as well. And we're gonna come back when we're putting the potatoes in, and we're gonna baste the chicken. You have to baste the chicken about 3 times once you put it in, and that means you just get the oils from the bottom of the tin that it's in, or the casserole dish it's in, and pour them back over just to make the skin nice and crispy. Okay, so my potatoes are done and my parsnips are in. just for a few minutes. So the potatoes, I gave them like less than 10 minutes. I'm going to strain the water off them, and then we'll come back and put the potatoes in the roasting tin with the chicken and the parsnips and carrots together then. Okay, I'll be back when I drain the potatoes. So I've taken my potatoes out of the pot. Just be really, really careful. Use gloves or a thick tea towel or towel when you're taking the water off the potatoes. And then you get a fork and a spoon so you don't burn yourself, and just kind of fluff the potatoes up. What I'm doing here is holding, like getting the fork and scraping the potatoes a little bit. So what happens is that when they're in the roasting tin, then they get kind of crispy. So just do that really quick with all the potatoes. You don't have to be careful or anything like that. Whoops, I should say a couple of minutes. And then that's all done. And as I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just fluff them up a bit. Then they go into the roasting tin and they spend about 45 minutes or so roasting. Now, just to let you know, like the potatoes won't really burn. They can take it if they need to stay a bit longer. So if your chicken isn't cooked, it's not the end of the world. You know, so it needs a few more minutes. It's not the end of the world. The honey roast carrots and parsnips, you have to kind of keep more of an eye on them, especially because there's honey on them, because they just sometimes can burn. But if you can take them out or even cover them when they're in the cooker, it should be fine. So the potatoes are ready to go in the roasting tin. You can put these on a separate tin if you would prefer. But I'm going to put them in with my chicken. So this is my chicken. It's been in for 35 minutes and it's already starting to crisp up at the top. And there's not an awful lot of oil to baste it with, but I'm just going to get a fork, just hold it aside, and any juices that are at the bottom of the pan, I'm just going to smooth. Oh, there's a bit of juice, all right, underneath. I'm just going to put back over the chicken. So do this about 3 times or so, and as it cooks closer and closer, there'll be more juice. And pop your potatoes in around the roast. So as I said, it depends on how many potatoes your guys will eat, and you can put this in a separate pan. So if you prefer to do the potatoes and the carrots and the parsnips all together, you can do that too. Wouldn't put the honey on the potatoes. Might not be very nice. So I have all my potatoes sitting around my tin. There we are. So my, oops, just sitting around the roast like that. Okay, that goes into the cooker for another 45 minutes, and that's our chicken done. And I'm going to go straight on and put my parsnips and carrots into the oven afterwards. Okay. So next it's our carrots and parsnips. Okay. So you get your parboiled parsnips, very simple, and literally pop them into a tray. Easy peasy. Straight one. And get your carrots and pop them in as well. So they need about 40 minutes in the cooker. So, oops, I have these stuck in this. So, you make sure that every time you touch your chicken, you wash your hands, because it's not fully cooked. You know, you need to wash your chicken you need to wash your hands between touching particularly raw chicken, but every time you touch chicken and move on to something else, wash your hands in between. Really important, just for food poisoning and all that kind of stuff. So, you throw your carrots and parsnips into a tray or a tin or whatever you have. So that's them there. And then I'm going to mix about 2 teaspoons of honey and about a teaspoon of oil just to drizzle it over. Okay. Now, if you need more, because you've more or less carrots, you just do that. So a little bit of oil. I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of oil. And then I'm just going to use squeezy honey. And it's so simple. You just mix those together. And it should be a little bit runny. Okay? A lot of the honeys are runny anyway. And just drizzle it over the carrots and parsnips. And I'm going to actually need a little bit more because of too many. But just drizzle it over. So the oil and the honey kind of help them coat them, but the oil helps them cook. And I'm going to do another teaspoon of oil and 2 teaspoons of honey. Now, this is to your taste. So if you think it's going to be like way too sweet, you can reduce it. Or if you prefer it to be sweeter, you can make it much sweeter. You can put a little bit more honey. But do remember, like, the roasted carrots and the roasted parsnips are going to be sweet because they're roasted. So don't go too crazy with the honey, just because they already get a certain sweetness because they're just being in the oven and roasting. All veg kind of gets a little bit sweeter as you do that. So even if you were kind of watching your sugar, roasted veg are not as healthy as boiled veg. So just to be aware of that. Okay, so these go in for about 40 minutes. These do have to be kind of watched because they can burn a little bit. I know from experience. So, but sometimes the bigger they are, the better, because they roast, and when they're really tiny, they tend to kind of stick and get burnt. So, but again, if you're short in time, cut them small. All right, and then we're going to come back and do the stuffing, and then when the chicken is done, do the gravy. Okay. So for the stuffing, it's dead easy. Some people stuff the chicken with stuffing, but it makes it much harder to figure out what time to cook the chicken at, and it's probably best that you cook it separately. So to start, I have about 250 grams of breadcrumbs in there. You can use as many as you think you'll need. This is all really about how it, like the consistency of it rather than the measurement. Ooh. I used a grater to grate stale bread, and I stick it into the freezer, and I always have a little bit of breadcrumbs in the freezer because I hate wasting bread. Now get the onion. I've 1 onion chopped, and you chop it really small. I know in my house, if there's like a big onion, they go mad. So pop that in. That's just 1 onion, and that is mixed into the breadcrumbs. So you mix the breadcrumbs and the onions together. I could probably do with maybe a little bit more onion. Oh no, it's fine actually, it's fine. So you leave the onion and the breadcrumbs aside, and you take a stock cube and put it in a mug of boiling water. So that's 250 mils of water, but a mug, about a half pint. And then you let that dissolve. Okay, you get a knob of butter and melt it, and you mix those two together. So I'm going to just get my butter. Now, so just a little butter. So I'm going to leave the butter aside for the moment. And I'm going to chop parsley. So you can use any kind of herbs you want. There's a bit of splash of water there. Just rinse the parsley or thyme, or people like sage, in under water, and you really are going to use just the tops of the parsley. So chop off the stalks and then chop the parsley pretty small. Okay, so that you just figure out how much you want. I'm going to put about a tablespoon of parsley. That can look like a lot of parsley when it's in the whole form, when it's like a big chunk like that, but the bit that you use is smaller. If you make soup or stock, you can use those bits to you know, to flavour the stock or whatever. That's not going to happen in this house. It's too busy. So you chop up your parsley. And while you're doing that, your stock is just dissolving there. So it's kind of melting into the water. And I'm going to give that a hand now in a minute. Chop up my parsley small. Okay. And gonna mix my stock cube. Okay, I'm gonna show you my parsley too. It's a bit too big actually. So the stock cube is there. Okay, and then I'm gonna just put a knob of butter in on top of it and let it melt. And in the meantime, I'm gonna continue to chop my, it's gonna fall. I'm gonna continue to chop my parsley on a knife. So you wanna chop your parsley pretty small, okay? And being really careful of your fingers. So just kind of like, maybe like this kind of size, or maybe even a bit smaller. So keep chopping away. I'm going to chop away, and when we're putting it all together, I'll come back. Okay, so my parsley is done. So to the breadcrumbs and the onion, I'm going to add kind of finely chopped parsley and pop it in there and mix it up. And I'm going to do this in foil, and just so that like stock and stuff doesn't run all over my cooker, I have like a tin of some sort. You can use a flat one or whatever. I'm going to stick the stuffing into the foil. The foil helps it stay very moist. And if you just stick it into a tin and not cover it, I've done that in the past and it's just dried it all out and hasn't been as nice. You can open the foil towards the end and then crisp up the top if you like. But I mixed all that together. I have my mug of stock, my 250 mils, and my butter. I'm going to just, that's all melted together. Almost. See a knob of butter there? Oh, there we are. So just like a knob of butter, not much. Some people make stuffing with just butter. This is a bit healthier. Because just butter is like a lot of butter. So you pour it in, very simple, and mix it together. If you feel you need more stock, you can make another stock cube or whatever. And this makes it nice and full of flavour. It doesn't have to be soaking wet. It's just to kind of bring all the breadcrumbs together. So we have this, and we are going to put the stuffing into this tin with the tin foil. So as I said, this is just keeping the tin foil is just have it drying out. Ooh, I made a lot. And the tin just to keep it all together in my cooker. Okay. So you stuff your put your stuffing in the tin and wrap it up in a little parcel. And pop it in the oven. And this takes about 30 minutes, 20 minutes. Again, just, you know, it's not in the chicken, so you don't have to worry. So you can just check that it's hot. And at the end, you can take the tin foil off the top. But I just basically have a parcel in my tin, and I'm going to pop that in the oven. Okay, so about halfway through the cooking, you don't even have to take them out, but I'm taking them out so you can see. You can just toss your veg and also turn your potatoes. And when you're turning the potatoes, baste your chicken for another time. So just real simple. You don't have to turn every single one of them, but just so that they turn and they crisp up on both sides. Okay, make sure that you have like a good thick oven glove. These are great, or whatever when you're doing this, because it is roasting. Okay, so and then pop this back in the oven, and we're going to do the same with the potatoes. Okay, and I'm going to do the same with the potatoes. This time there's a lot more oil around the pan. So I'm going to twirl the potatoes around so that they kind of roast evenly on both sides, so they get brown on both sides. But they are pretty much there. I think my chicken is going to be done in about 10 minutes or so. Yeah, it would be about 10 minutes. So just get your spoon and just turn the potato over underneath the chicken. Now, this is harder when the chicken is in the pan, but they do get coated with the chicken juices. All right, at this point, you might have a little look into your chicken. So get a clean knife, and here it is. Get a clean knife, and then at the leg part of the chicken, just pop your knife in. I think this is kind of done. It's a smaller chicken than I expected. And then squeeze the flesh. So the leg is where, yeah, all that is running really clear. The leg is where the chicken has more veins in it and stuff like that. So you're more likely to see if it's not quite cooked. So I'm going to bring that up closer to give you kind of an idea. Oops, sorry. Okay, so when you press in, you see the juices running there. I don't know if you can see that. Oh my goodness, yeah, there's my knife. So if you press in there, the juices run clear from the leg, okay? If you can see that. So there's no kind of bloody juice or anything like that. Now, I actually am going to give this just another 5 minutes or so, but that looks pretty good. Okay. Okay. Back into the oven for just a few minutes, but then I'm going to take my chicken out to rest. My potatoes, I'd like them a bit crispier, so I'm going to take my chicken out to rest and make the gravy. Okay? Okay, so we're nearly ready. I actually wanted my potatoes to be more crispy, so I took my chicken out and it's resting now in tin foil. So you just wrap it up really nicely in tin foil, or really tightly in tin foil, and leave it aside. So that really helps the chicken to get really juicy. So I'm going to take the potatoes out and drain they're probably done kind of at this stage, and I'm going to drain the fat from the chicken, the juices from the chicken, into a pan, and we're going to make gravy. Okay. Oh, it's really juicy. So the really good thing about doing this all in the oven is that you don't have to be really quick with all the veg and everything. But I am going to steam some broccoli. Okay, so what I'm doing here now, you probably can't see that, is that I'm putting the juice from the roasting dish into a pot. Okay, and that wasn't supposed to happen, but I've lost a potato. Okay, so you'll try that again. So I have most of it anyway. So it might be a good idea to use something to hold back the potatoes, because you lose your potatoes. Sorry about that. So I'm going to hold the potatoes back as I pour in. Oh, I have it all. Actually, I have it all, the juice. That's okay. Okay, so you pour the juice into a pan like this, okay? And what we're going to try and do is get the fat out of it, so that your gravy, the gravy is cooked with the juice in the pan. You can put your potatoes back in the oven just to keep them hot. I lost one on the floor, and at the moment everything is cooking really nicely in here. I've pulled back the tin foil a little bit on the stuffing. Stuffing really just has to heat, but I've pulled it back so there's crispy bits. And my my honey roasted veg is pretty much cooked. So I'm going to just put everything back in the oven to keep it hot, and I'm going to make some gravy. Okay. So for the gravy, you're going to need 2 tablespoons. I've lost my tablespoon. Here we are. 2 tablespoons of flour, any flour, so it can be self-raising or plain, doesn't matter, and 2 tablespoons of gravy granules. And the difference between a tablespoon and a dessert spoon is just one is bigger, okay? So if you don't have a tablespoon, you can use 2 of these, okay? It's really just to thicken it. When you have these 2 here, you mix them together. And in here, the juice of the meat is cooling down a bit, but I'm going to put some ice cubes in it so it cools it down quick and it helps me skim the fat off the top. So just one moment and I'll come back and get some ice cubes. So I'm back now with my ice cubes, which I've left over there, and I've put a stock cube, a chicken stock cube, into another mug of boiling water, so about 250 mils. I'm just going to get my ice cubes. So you let your chicken stock dissolve, and these are my ice cubes. I'm going to put an ice cube or 2 into, put 3 in. This cools it down quick, and it helps you find the fat, to skim the fat off the top. So it is starting to separate. You'll just see that there's kind of oil on the top, and you can remove it just with a spoon. So, it's hard for you to see this. So when you, sorry, very bad Steven Spielberg moment. So my ice cubes are there, and you'll see that at the top, you have like a skimmy of, like a little skin of oil on the top. And you can just get your spoon to take it off. So I'm going to just let that cool down a little bit more so it's easier for you to see it. And in the meantime, my chicken is just resting. It'll be fine. It'll stay warm in the tin foil. I have boiling water on for some steamed broccoli, or any other veg that you wanna steam. I can turn it down a bit actually. Oops. Oh, sorry. And when this is looking a little bit easier to